The year is 1826. Dawn bleeds across the Virginia hills, pale and merciless. A tree stands alone at the edge of the green hollow fields, its branches heavy with dew and with something darker. The rope creaks in the silence, swaying with a rhythm. No wind commands. Crows circle, black wings cutting the morning sky. The body twists, boots muddy, shirt torn, neck bent at an unnatural angle. Whispers rise, carried by the earth itself. Some say he begged, some say he laughed. But the tree remembers the truth. The story begins at the gallows. The Virginia sun was still climbing when the cicadas began their shrill chorus, a sound that never stopped on the fields of Green Hollow. Cotton stretched in rows like endless white scars across the land. The air smelled of sweat and molasses, clinging sweet and sour to every breath. And always from somewhere the sharp crack of a whip cut through the hymns the field hands hummed under their breath. Elias Finch worked with his head bent low, fingers bleeding from pulling cotton bolls, too fast. He was not known for strength nor for defiance, but for silence. In his pocket he kept a secret no one saw, a rusted link from a broken chain, small enough to hide in his palm, heavy enough to remind him of what bound him still. When the bell rang for midday, Elias drifted toward the cookhouse where smoke curled from a chimney and the smell of pork fat and cornmeal drifted heavy in the air. Martha Bell stood at the hearth, stirring with an iron spoon longer than her arm. Her pot was blackened from years of fire, never once scrubbed clean. They said Martha could feed 50 mouths with scraps and still keep one ear open to every whisper. "Martha," Elias said softly, not daring to raise his voice. She glanced over, sweat on her brow, her voice a low rasp. "You walkin' like..." "A man carries stones, Finch. What you seen?" Elias shifted, thumb brushing the chain link in his pocket. "Nothing. Only the tree." Martha's spoon scraped the pot. She did not look at him. "Best not to talk about that." "But," folks whisper, "I hear them hum indifferent today, like they hum to hide the words." She turned then, her eyes sharp and shining in the dim smoke. "You keep your ears closed if you want to see another sunrise. That tree's got roots deeper than blood." "And the man what swung there?" "Well, some say he still swings." Elias swallowed. He could not help himself. "Who was it, Martha? Who hung from it?" The cook slammed the lid down on her pot, the clang echoing like iron bars. "Don't ask. Me name's not yet, but I'll tell you this, wasn't no thief, wasn't no stranger, was one of our own. And the one put him there weren't no judge with wig or gavel." The cicadas screamed outside. The kitchen air grew hotter. Elias pressed the chain link so hard into his palm, it left a mark. Martha leaned closer, her whisper so soft it blended with the hiss of the fire. "Something happened by that gallows tree. Something the masters don't want spoken. But trees remember, Finch. Trees always remember." Her words hung heavier than the smoke. And in the silence after, it seemed even the cicadas hushed, as if the fields themselves were listening. Elias lowered his gaze, trembling. He did not ask again. But the name burned on his tongue, the name carried in every whispered hymn. Joseph. Carter. Night on Green Hollow was thick with heat and silence. From the quarters, faint voices rose, tired voices, broken voices, but one always carried above the rest. Sarah Carter's voice, soft, steady, like a stream running through stone. She sang lullabies that seemed older than the fields themselves. Words passed from mother to child, each note a prayer disguised as comfort. "Sleep, my child, the night is long. Sleep, my child, the chain's not strong, tomorrow's sun will set you free." The words clung to Joseph Carter's ears as a boy, echoing in the spaces between whip cracks and commands. He would lie on the dirt floor, eyes wide, listening as the lullaby softened his brother Samuel's shallow breathing. Samuel was frail, coughing through most nights, ribs showing beneath skin stretched thin. Joseph learned early to protect him, to fetch water, to share food even when hunger gnawed at his own belly. "Hold him close, Joseph," Sarah whispered one night, her hand pressing Samuel's thin shoulder. Her eyes, dark, tired, unbroken, met Joseph's. "The Lord watches, but so must you. You're his shield." Joseph nodded, silent. He was always silent. Words felt dangerous in a world where listening was safer. But silence did not save him from Thomas Calhoun. Calhoun came to Green Hollow in the year Joseph turned 9. He rode tall on a horse slick with sweat, his leather boots polished so bright they caught the sun. He smelled of whiskey even before midday. His voice carried like a whip itself, sharp, cruel, cutting through air. Lazy backs, lazy hands. Calhoun spat on his first day, pacing the rows. "But I'll teach you quick. Ain't no man or child gets soft on my fields." Sarah pulled Joseph close when the overseer passed, whispering her hymn under her breath. But it was not long before Calhoun's eyes fell on the boy. One morning Joseph stumbled with a cotton sack heavier than his shoulders could bear. The bolts cut his fingers raw, blood dripping into the white fluff. Calhoun saw him falter and strode over, boots shining, eyes cold. "You think them sacks carry themselves?" Calhoun growled, swinging the lash he kept coiled at his side. "Stand. Straight, boy." Joseph tried, but his knees buckled. The lash struck, fire ripping across his back. Once, twice, again. His cry echoed across the fields, drowned only by Calhoun's laughter. From the quarters, Sarah heard it. She ran, clutching Samuel, but the lash had already carved its mark. When she reached Joseph, he lay still in the dirt, his shirt torn, blood soaking the dust. Calhoun stood over him, boots gleaming, whiskey breath hot in the air. "Remember, this day," Calhoun said, voice dripping with triumph. "Scars are the only lessons you people understand." Sarah dropped to her knees, her hands trembling as she cradled Joseph's head. "Hush now, my son," she whispered through tears. "Sleep, my child, the night is long." Joseph's eyes burned, not only with pain but with something deeper. He did not answer. He only watched, silent as always, storing every detail, the boots, the laughter, the sting of leather. From that day forward, the scar down his back was more than a wound. It was a memory carved in flesh, a reminder that he had been marked not just by cruelty, but by a promise. Years passed, and Joseph grew taller, shoulders broad from endless labor, face stern with quiet strength. Samuel remained frail, often too weak for the fields, coughing until his lips turned blue. Sarah never stopped singing, never stopped praying, even as her voice grew hoarse. "Joseph," she said one evening, her hand resting over the scar on his back. "You are more than what he tries to make of you. Remember that. Don't let him write your whole story." Joseph did not speak, but in his silence, Sarah saw something forming, something sharper than steel, heavier than chains. Calhoun continued his reign, boots polished, flask always at hand. He boasted to other men in town about how quickly he could break a back, break a spirit. But Joseph did not break. He bent, he learned, he watched. By the time he reached manhood, the scar on his back had become part of him, the way a tree absorbs lightning yet still grows taller. And though he never said the words, every swing of Calhoun's lash wrote the same message deeper into his heart. One day, the tree would bear another weight. The years bent Joseph into a man, broad shoulders, hands like stone, a face carved in silence. The scar across his back no longer burned, but it never faded. It lived in him like a brand, like a prophecy. Isaiah Green walked beside him in the fields, his laughter soft but steady, a rare comfort in Green Hollow. Isaiah had a gift. From scraps of wood he carved little figures, birds, crosses, even tiny chains he broke in two. He would press them into Joseph's palm at night. "Keep it," Isaiah said one evening, handing him a wooden sparrow. "Birds know more freedom than men here. Maybe it'll remind you what waits above these fields." Joseph turned the sparrow over in his hand. His eyes softened, though his voice stayed low. "Freedom ain't waiting, Isaiah. We got to carve it ourselves." Isaiah nodded, his own eyes lit with quiet fire. "Then maybe we start with dreams. Dreams are safer than plans." Dreams took flesh in the quarters of the house where Joseph's path crossed with Eliza Morton. Eliza's steps were light, her voice soft as a hymn, but her eyes burned with secrets. She carried more than trays of food or baskets of linen. She carried knowledge hidden in folded scraps of paper. By candlelight, when the quarters were hushed, Eliza would whisper lessons. "See this word, Joseph. Freedom. It's spelled like this. She drew the letters with ash on the dirt floor. "Say it." "Freedom," he repeated, the sound foreign but sweet on his tongue. Her smile flickered. "If they catch us, they won't." His voice was steady, sharper than the scar down his back. "Not while I got breath." They whispered vows. In the dark, voices low enough to blend with the cicadas outside. Hymns became their code, each verse carrying meaning only they shared. And in the hush between words, Eliza would slip him folded notes, letters written in careful hand. She taught him to hide them in the hollow of a tree, in the seams of his trousers. Each one was a spark, a secret flame. But sparks drew eyes. Henry Tate noticed before anyone else. He was the driver, skin lighter than most, a child of two worlds, but loyal to neither. His lips curled into a smile whenever Calhoun passed, his laugh loudest at every cruel joke. He walked with the overseer's keys at his belt, tapping them like a badge of favor. One night, Tate watched Joseph and Eliza linger too close by the well. He leaned against the post, grinning. "Careful, Carter," Tate drawled. "A man caught, whispering in shadows, might find himself dragged into daylight." "Overseer don't take kindly to secrets." Joseph's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Silence was his armor. Eliza's hand brushed Joseph's. Her whisper was urgent when Tate walked away. "He'll tell. I can see it in his eyes." Joseph stared after Tate, the scar on his back prickling as if freshly cut. "Then let him. Overseer already has my blood. What more can he take?" But they both knew the answer. Calhoun could take Eliza. The overseer's shadow grew longer with every passing day. He began to notice Joseph more, not just as a laborer, but as a man who carried something hidden, something defiant. Calhoun's flask was never far from his lips, his boots never less than gleaming. He watched Joseph and Eliza with the cruel patience of a hawk. One evening, when Joseph bent to lift a sack, Calhoun's voice cut through the dusk. "You got strong arms, Carter. Strong enough to hold more than cotton, I reckon. You carrying something else these nights? Secrets? Maybe a woman's favor?" Joseph froze, sack heavy on his back. Eliza stood nearby, her face pale as ash. Calhoun's smile was slow, soaked in whiskey. "Careful, boy," he sneered, his boots pressing the dirt. "Secrets got a way of spilling blood." That night, Joseph lay awake, staring at the roof beams above. Eliza's hand rested in his, trembling. "You still dream?" she whispered. "Yes," Joseph said, voice low, steady. "But every dream's shadowed. He's there, Eliza. Calhoun's there." Outside, cicadas screamed into the darkness, and the gallows tree loomed unseen on the horizon. The summer air pressed down thick as tar. Sweat clung to the backs of every man bent in the rows, cicadas shrieking so loud they swallowed thought. Joseph carried his sack across the yard, Eliza at his side with a bundle of linens. For a moment, the world was quiet between them. Her fingers brushed his, a touch so small it could have been a breeze, but eyes were watching. "Always." "Carter." Calhoun's voice split the air like lightning. Joseph froze. Eliza stiffened. Calhoun strode across the yard, boots shining, flask swinging from his belt. At his side, Henry Tate lingered with a smirk spread wide across his face, the overseer's loyal shadow. "I seen it," Tate said, loud enough for all to hear. "Ain't no mistake, overseer. He carries more than sacks, he carries her hand." The field hands went still, spines bending as if under an invisible lash. Sarah Carter's voice broke in a prayer too soft to carry far. Isaiah clenched his fists, wooden sparrow hidden deep in his pocket. Calhoun stepped close, his breath a cloud of sour whiskey. He grabbed Eliza's wrist, twisting it until she cried out. "You think you free to touch what ain't yours?" he snarled at Joseph. "A boy and a house wench thinking they can write letters and whisper under the moon?" Eliza struggled, her voice cracking. "Please, please, overseer, we meant no—" "Silence!" Calhoun's slap sent her sprawling in the dirt. Her bundle burst open, linens scattering like pale ghosts across the ground. Joseph's body tensed, but he did not move. He knew one wrong step would mean her death. Calhoun turned, eyes narrowing. The lash uncoiled from his hand, leather hissing through the air. "On your knees, Carter." Joseph did not kneel. He stood, chest rising, scar burning beneath his shirt. The whip cracked. It tore across his back once, twice, again, each strike, pulling gasps from the onlookers. His shirt shredded, blood soaking into cotton. Still he stood, his jaw locked, his silence louder than any cry. Calhoun leaned close, his words meant only for Joseph. "You'll die on my land, boy. And when you do, I'll make sure the crows pick your bones clean." Joseph's breath came ragged, vision swimming red. But he said nothing. His silence was no longer fear, it was steel. Calhoun stepped back, laughter curling like smoke. "Tie her up," he ordered Tate. "Tomorrow she goes downriver. Fetch a fine price in New Orleans. Maybe teach Carter what happens when a slave forgets his place." Eliza screamed, thrashing as Tate seized her arms. Her eyes found Joseph's, wide with terror. "Joseph, don't let them, please!" He could not move. His legs shook, blood dripping into the dirt. But inside something shifted, harder than bone, heavier than chains. Around them the field fell into terrible silence. No one spoke. Heads bowed. Only Sarah's voice, trembling in prayer. "Deliver us, Lord. Deliver us," Isaiah whispered. Under his breath, fists trembling. "Hold, brother, just hold." Calhoun snapped the whip once more, satisfaction painted across his face. "Remember this lesson, Carter. Remember what your silence costs." Then he strode away, boots gleaming. Eliza dragged in his wake. Tate lingered long enough to smirk at Joseph's bleeding figure before following. Joseph fell to his knees, the dirt hot beneath him, his blood mixing with dust. His silence did not break, but his vow was born. In that moment, the overseer's words carved deeper than the lash. He would die on this land. Unless Joseph wrote another ending, and the tree at Tsu, the edge of the field seemed to wait, its branches swaying in a wind that had not yet come. Night fell heavy on Green Hollow. The moon laid pale light across the rows, silvering the cotton like frost. Joseph sat apart from the quarters, sharpening a rusted blade against stone. The scrape echoed soft, dangerous, like a whisper of steel, through bone. Isaiah crouched beside him, hands busy carving another sparrow from wood. His voice was low. "You mean to kill him, don't you?" Joseph did not look up. His hand moved slow, steady over the blade. "I mean to end him." Isaiah's knife slipped, cutting his thumb. He sucked the blood, eyes searching Joseph's face. "Men who try that path don't live to see the sunrise." Joseph's silence was answer enough. Eliza came then, her steps quick, clutching a folded scrap of paper. Candle wax stained the corner. "I wrote it," she whispered, breath trembling. "The hymn. If they find it, they'll think it nothing but scripture." She opened the paper, neat letters, verses laced with hidden instruction. Isaiah frowned. Too risky. One slip, and Henry Tate. Her voice cut sharp. "Then we hide it better." She pressed the letter into Joseph's hand. "Memorize every word. If they take me, the plan must live in you." Joseph tucked the paper deep beneath his shirt, against the scar. He touched it briefly, as if testing the weight of his vow. Days passed. Suspicion hung like smoke. Calhoun drank deeper, lashed harder, his boots always gleaming. Henry Tate lingered in shadows, eyes sharp as broken glass. The air itself felt restless. On Sunday, the slaves gathered under the oak where Reverend Josiah, Webb spoke. He was bent with age, beard thin and white, his voice worn but firm. His Bible was tattered, half its pages gone, corners blackened from years of hidden use. "Brothers, sisters," he said, his hand trembling over the book. "Scriptures say, 'The meek shall inherit the earth,' but the earth don't give itself. Easy. Sometimes you must take hold." Joseph met the old man's gaze across the circle. Something passed between them, unspoken but clear. The Reverend's hand lingered on his missing pages, then pressed over his heart. "Whatever happens, remember, the Lord's justice runs deeper than rivers." In the kitchen, Clara Morton, Eliza's younger sister, played with a wooden doll, carved by Isaiah. She twirled it on the table, humming Sarah Carter's lullaby without knowing the pain it carried. "Clara," Eliza whispered, kneeling beside her, "how you mustn't hum that outside. Not where they can hear." "Why?" the child asked, wide-eyed. Eliza brushed her hair back, because songs carry secrets, and secrets can break chains, or break necks. Clara nodded, clutching the doll. Tight. She didn't understand, but she saw the fear in her sister's eyes. One night, Joseph hid the rope in a flour sack near the cookhouse. Martha Bell caught sight of him passing and shook her head slowly. "Whatever you're baking, boy, best pray the fire don't catch too soon." Joseph's only reply was a glance, steady and unreadable. His silence told Martha more than words could, but the silence nearly cost him. That same night, the moon betrayed him. Its light flashed on the blade as he honed it by the well. Henry Tate's footsteps crunched in the distance. Joseph froze, slipping the blade into his boot, covering it with dirt. Tate squinted into the dark. "Someone out here?" His keys jingled as he stepped closer. Joseph leaned against the well, forcing calm into his voice. "Just fetching water." Tate sniffed, smirk tugging at his lips. "Careful. Overseer don't like midnight wanderers. You best remember which side of the whip you on." His laugh cut through the night, and Joseph's hand drifted unconsciously to his scar. Another danger came with daylight. Eliza's letter slipped from her apron as she crossed the yard. Tate bent low, reaching for it, grin spreading. "What's this then?" he drawled. Before he could unfold it, Clara darted forward, clutching the paper. "It's mine!" she shouted. "Just a hymn, Reverend taught it." Tate narrowed his eyes, snatched the doll from her other hand. "You better keep to dolls, girl. Letters ain't for your kind." He tossed the doll into the dirt, smirk curling as he walked away. Eliza knelt, hugging Clara, voice shaking. "You saved us," she whispered. But her eyes flicked to Joseph, fear rising. Joseph touched his scar through his shirt, pressing hard as if carving his vow deeper. "No more saving, next time it ends." The days shortened. The air grew tense, brittle, like glass ready to shatter. Calhoun's cruelty swelled with his drink. The whispers in the quarters grew louder. Each night, Joseph repeated the ritual. Hand to scar, eyes to the rope hidden in the sack, the blade hidden in his boot, Eliza's hymn folded tight. Every tool was ready. Every secret was carved into flesh. The only question left was when the tree would demand its due. The storm broke over Green Hollow like the crack of heaven's own whip. Thunder rolled across the hills, and rain smothered the fields. Cicadas, endless singers of the Virginia night, fell silent. Only the hiss of rain and the low groan of wind remained. A lantern swung in the darkness, its flame trembling. Calhoun staggered along the path from town, boots sinking into mud. His coat was drenched, his hat askew. The stink of whiskey hung on him, sharp and sour, weaving with the smoke of his cigar that sputtered in the wet. His boots crunched, one heavy step at a time. The sound carried through the trees, closer, closer, until it reached the quarters where shadows waited. Joseph stood beneath the oak, rain coursing down his scarred back, rope coiled in his hands. His grip was steady, though his heart struck, like a hammer. Beside him, Isaiah's breath puffed white in the storm air. "Now?" Isaiah whispered. Joseph's answer came with the pull of the rope sliding through his calloused palms, the sound like a snake through dead leaves. "Now." Calhoun cursed as the mud stole his step. "Filthy road," he slurred, "filthy land." He kicked at the muck, stumbled, then spat blood and phlegm into the storm. From the shadows, Joseph moved, silent, sudden, like a blade pulled from the sheath. He struck Calhoun in the chest, driving him into the trunk of the oak. The overseer gasped, whiskey-soured breath filling Joseph's face. "Boy," he snarled, fists swinging. One hit Joseph's jaw, another his ribs. The pain burned, but Joseph didn't let go. Isaiah leapt in, grabbing Calhoun's arms, twisting them back. The overseer roared, thrashing like a bull. His polished boots, still gleaming even through the mud, kicked furrows into the earth. "You think?" Calhoun spat, his voice breaking with rage. "You think you can touch me?" Joseph's scar burned under his shirt, fire meeting the storm. He shoved the rope against Calhoun's throat, forcing him back against the oak. Calhoun clawed at it, eyes wild. "I'll gut you both. I'll burn your mothers. I'll salt your graves." Joseph leaned close, rain dripping from his chin into Calhoun's face. His voice was steady, sharp as flint. "You said I'd die on your land. Tonight, it's you who hangs from it." Isaiah hauled the rope high, hands slipping in. The rain. Teeth clenched as he pulled. The noose tightened. The oak groaned as if it remembered all who had swayed from its limbs before. Calhoun's boots kicked, polished leather flashing in the lantern glow. His curses choked into guttural gasps, into wet, broken gargles. The overseer clawed the air, spit and blood mingling in the rain. His face swelled red, then purple, eyes bulging, lips trembling with one last stream of venom. "You dogs," he rasped, before the rope cut him silent. The storm's roar seemed to hush around them. The lantern's flame licked shadows across the mud. Joseph watched, breath heaving, eyes locked on the man who had carved scars into his flesh. His grip didn't loosen until Calhoun's boots stopped thrashing. Even then, he held the rope, as, if afraid to let it go, Isaiah panted, leaning against the trunk. "It's done," he said, but his voice carried no triumph. Only weariness. The silence after the fight was heavier than the storm. A twig snapped. Both men spun. Lantern light caught another face, Henry Tate, standing frozen at the edge of the clearing, rain dripping from his hair. His smirk was gone, replaced by wide, calculating eyes. "Well, well," he muttered, trying to mask his shock. "What have we here?" Isaiah moved toward him, fists clenched, but Joseph raised a hand to stop him. He stepped forward, rope still hanging loose in his grip, the overseer's body swinging behind him. "You saw nothing," Joseph said, voice low, dangerous. Tate's lips twitched. "The master will pay dearly to know of this." Joseph stepped closer until the lantern lit the scar across his cheek and the blood at his jaw. His voice was a whisper swallowed by thunder. "You speak, you hang next. Tonight, tomorrow, or the night after. It don't matter. Rope remembers." Tate's eyes flicked to the body twisting in the rain. His smirk faltered, then returned, thinner, weaker. "I'll keep my tongue, for now." But Joseph knew betrayal when he saw it. Seeds planted in silence. Calhoun's body swayed, boots dripping, lantern light catching the gleam of leather. The storm washed his curses from the earth. "Joseph, let the rope fall slack," the weight of vengeance pulling on his arms, on his chest, on his very soul. He looked once at Isaiah, once at Tate, and then at the black sky above. The oak groaned in the wind. The gallows tree had claimed another life. Thunder cracked, and in the silence that followed, nothing moved but the storm. The storm passed, but its memory clung to Green Hollow. The fields lay flattened, the soil thick with mud. At dawn, cicadas sang again, but the air was charged, restless. The oak tree groaned in silence, its limb bearing the mark of rope. At the quarters, hymns rose in whispers. Low, trembling voices wove through the dark, songs of victory, of freedom, of something too dangerous to say plain. Martha Bell stirred her pot, smoke curling from the soot-blackened iron. She muttered under her breath, "Chains don't rattle." Forever. Her words sank like stones into listening ears, but fear wrapped every note. Mothers hushed their children. Men spoke in riddles, afraid the wind itself might carry their secrets to white ears. Clara Morton clutched her wooden doll, eyes wide, too young to understand, yet sensing the weight pressing on her elders. Isaiah, his hands raw, whispered to Joseph in the shadows, "They'll come for us. They'll burn the quarters down if they have to." Joseph's eyes never left the oak. His voice was steady, almost calm. "Then let them come." By noon, the plantation masters gathered, fury boiling. Calhoun's body had been cut down and laid across a wagon. His polished boots, now dulled by mud, pointed skyward. Sheriff Alden Briggs arrived, coat dripping from the ride, face carved in stone. He bent over the body, muttered low, "Took a strong hand to do this." The landowners shouted, spit flying, "Find the dogs! Make an example! Hang them all if you must!" Briggs raised a hand. "Justice will be served. But chaos, don't feed cotton. Best we find the one who swung the rope." The masters growled, but they yielded. The sheriff's word carried weight. He turned to the quarters, eyes narrowing. "Bring me the hands, one by one." Past interrogations, the field hands stood before him in the smoke-thick kitchen. Martha Bell ladled stew into bowls as if nothing were amiss. Briggs slammed his fist on the table. Who killed Calhoun? No answer. Only the crackle of the fire. Elias Finch fiddled with the broken chain link in his pocket, eyes on the floor. Don't know, sir. Briggs leaned close, sniffing lies. You expect me to believe he strung himself? Martha clanged her ladle against the pot, breaking the tension. Reckon the bottle strung him. Whiskey do stranger things than ropes. Her voice was bold, but her eyes flicked toward Joseph only once, quick as lightning. Briggs studied her, but the smell of onions and smoke covered her words like a veil. For a moment it seemed the truth might stay buried in the mud. But Henry. Tate stepped forward, keys jingling at his belt, smirk sharp as broken glass. Sheriff, he said, I seen them. Carter and his shadow, Isaiah, dragged him under the oak like dogs with a bone. The quarters froze, breath caught in throats. Isaiah lunged, but Joseph caught his arm, holding him back. Joseph's face was calm, as if he had expected this. Briggs nodded slowly. Bring Carter, bring Green, we'll let the court hear it. The courthouse reeked of damp wood and sweat. White men filled the benches, their boots clattering, their voices demanding blood. The enslaved sat at the back, eyes lowered, their silence louder than shouts. Joseph stood chained, shoulders straight, his scarred back a map of Calhoun's cruelty. Isaiah knelt beside him, bruised and bleeding from the whip, yet alive. Eliza, pale with terror, clutched Clara's hand until her knuckles blanched. Sarah Carter was there too, veil slipping from her face, lips moving in prayer. The judge, heavy, with jowls and whiskey, slammed his gavel. Joseph Carter, you are charged with the murder of Overseer Thomas Calhoun. Do you repent? The room hushed. Joseph lifted his head, eyes burning with quiet fire. His voice rang steady, unshaken. I repent only that I waited so long. Gasps swept the benches. The masters shouted. Martha Bell closed her eyes, whispering, Lord, take those words and carve them in stone. The judge sneered. Then sentence is clear. You shall hang by the neck until dead. Sarah Carter collapsed with a cry, fainting into Eliza's arms. Isaiah shouted, voice hoarse, If he hangs, I hang too. The whip cracked across his back before he could rise again. The days that followed broke the community like glass. Isaiah survived the lash but was left scarred, body trembling with every breath. Eliza Morton was sold downriver, torn from her sister's arms. Clara screamed, clutching her wooden doll until it split in her hands. Sarah Carter, voice once soft, with lullabies grew silent, her songs buried in grief. In the fields, whispers became dangerous. Every eye turned skyward at the oak, where men saw not only death but a mark of defiance. Beyond Green Hollow, stories spread. Across neighboring plantations, men whispered in hushed tones at the fireside. Some spoke in fear. A slave hanged. A white man. The devil walks in Virginia. Others in awe. One of ours swung the rope and the land itself shook. Songs were born, half hidden in hymns. Swing low, they sang, and some heard only heaven. Others heard the oak tree, the storm, the rope sliding through calloused hands. The masters doubled their patrols, sharpened their whips. But the fear in their eyes betrayed them. One act had shaken their order, and in the silence of night, when chains rattled and owls cried, the legend of Joseph Carter began to breathe. Years bled into years, and Green Hollow was no longer the same land. The fields bore new crops, the masters' houses crumbled, yet the oak tree remained, its branches still crooked, its roots still deep. Time could not erase its shadow. Clara Morton, now grown with silver streaks in her hair, often sat with her grandchildren by the fire. She still kept the wooden doll, cracked down the middle, wrapped in a cloth. When the children begged for stories, she spoke in whispers. I was just a child when I saw him, she would say, voice soft as smoke. Joseph Carter, strong but quiet. His eyes carried storms. He never raised his voice, never struck a man until the night he struck Calhoun down. The children's eyes widened, reflecting firelight. Did he really kill the overseer, Grandma? Clara's lips tightened. Some say yes, some say no. But I saw the rope burn through his hands. I saw the fire in his eyes. He wasn't just a man that night. He was something greater. Among the freed, the stories multiplied. Old men on neighboring Plantations swore Joseph broke the rope himself, dropped from the gallows and walked into the woods never to be seen again. He lives still, they whispered, waiting for the day chains rattle once more. Others claimed he laughed as the rope snapped his neck, laughed loud enough to shake the heavens. The storm came with his breath, they said. The thunder cracked when his heart stopped. Some even believed his spirit lingered in the oak. Children dared each other to touch its trunk, but mothers pulled them back. That's the gallows tree, they warned. Blood feeds its roots. Don't you go near. And yet, in secret, those same mothers pointed to it as a mark of defiance. Remember Joseph Carter, they murmured over their children's beds. Remember the scar he carried, the song his mama sang, the rope he turned against the master. Years passed and the oak grew heavier with legend. Chains were said to lie buried beneath its roots. Some claimed on storm nights, the earth groaned and the iron links clattered under the soil. Isaiah Green lived to old age, bent and scarred, but he never spoke openly of that night. He carried a pouch of wooden charms, sparrows carved by his hand. When pressed, he would only say, "Joseph did what needed doing." Then he'd fall silent, eyes fixed on some memory too sharp for words. Sarah Carter's lullaby endured. It slipped into hymns carried in fields, sung in churches long after her voice was gone. "Hush now, child, don't you cry." The words blurred, but the meaning remained. A mother's song turned into a battle hymn. Joseph Carter became more myth than man, a ghost to frighten children into obedience, a hero to inspire whispers of resistance, a warning to masters who drank too much and trusted their whips too well. Some called him sinner, cursed for spilling blood. Others called him saint, chosen to strike vengeance when heaven seemed deaf. But all agreed. When the storm rolled heavy over Virginia, when thunder shook the ground and rain lashed the fields, it was Joseph Carter's spirit that walked the night, and beneath the oak in the silence after lightning, one could almost hear rope sliding through calloused hands. History does not answer cleanly. It rarely tells us whether a man was villain or savior, murderer or martyr. Joseph Carter hangs in that space between. To the law of his day, he was guilty, blood on his hands, defiance in his eyes. But to those who bent beneath the lash, he was something else. A man who refused to bow, who returned the overseers, cruelty in kind. A man who carried his scar like scripture until the night he wrote his own ending. Oppression breeds violence. The whip cracks until silence grows heavier than screams. And silence too is guilty. It is accomplice to chains, to blood in the soil, to cries that vanish into the night. Joseph's noose was not the first, nor the last. But when justice is denied, it always seeks another path. Sometimes it whispers in hymns, sometimes it hides in letters, sometimes it tightens like a rope in calloused hands. What do we remember now? The man or the myth? Perhaps both. Perhaps that is the only way we can hold stories that bleed. For in the end, it is not the verdict that lingers, but the echo of thunder over the fields, the sight of boots swinging in the storm. Memory is rebellion. To remember Joseph Carter is to hear his vow carried forward, that chains can break, that fear can turn to fire, that silence can one day find its voice. Every gallows tree holds two stories, the one carved by the rope and the one whispered by the wind. If you were Joseph Carter, bound in chains, scarred by the lash, your family torn from you, your love threatened with the river, what would you have done? Would you have bowed your head, waiting for mercy that never came? Would you have whispered forgiveness into the silence, or would you have burned it all down? That is the question Joseph left behind, carved not in paper but in blood, rope, and thunder. His story is not just about one man. It is about the weight of history pressing on the necks of the powerless. It is about the moment silence breaks and vengeance speaks. And it asks us, even now, when justice fails, what path remains? I want to hear your thoughts. Was Joseph a murderer or a freedom fighter? A sinner or a saint? Leave your answer in the comments below, because every voice adds to the legacy, and every debate keeps the story alive. Subscribe to uncover more dark histories, true crimes, and untold legends, because some stories were never meant to be forgotten.